We're back in session. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. And let's, now tomorrow, as a reminder, just because we're going to change our schedule a little bit and try to go through, work through lunch and go home early, right? So everybody can brace for that. So
what will be the hours so we know for our testimony?
So we'll go through, I think we'll go through 1 until 1, straight through, with a short break, then again at 12. That should work, 1:30. Gonna be able to do it, squeeze it in?
Yeah, so.
Either way, either we take 90 minutes in the middle of the day or we just.
No, it works perfect. We just want to know for timing. So we'll start tomorrow approximately.
We'll try to do 9 o'clock.
Okay.
And maybe 9:15, we'll try for 9.
To 1 or 1:30.
Yeah.
With a break in the middle there.
Right, we'll have a break at 10:30, and we may take a minute or two, quick bathroom break, because it will be a long time between 10:30 and longer. But and then we'll all go home early. All right, Mr. Milius, are you ready to roll?
Yes.
You may.
Please stand. Dr. Kuperman, you remain under oath. Bill, you may conclude your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Dr. Kuperman.
Good afternoon.
By February, for a fourth-year student, what month does a fourth-year student typically graduate medical school?
At the end of May.
By February, for a fourth-year student, that student then is 3 months away from graduation?
That student should be on target for graduation.
Okay. By February of the last year of medical school, how close is that student to receiving their match for this residency?
The match is in towards the end of March.
The end of March. Would they have already gone through the interviews?
Yes.
Would they have already gotten their
Many
recommendations?
interviews, not just one.
Would they have already gotten their recommendations from Dr. Eugene Cook?
Yes.
Would you expect that a medical student in their fourth year would be given more responsibilities in their rotation than a third year?
Yes.
Would you expect that a medical student in their fourth year would be more experienced in what they're handling in their rotations and clerk tests than a third year student?
Yes.
Are the fourth year medical students instructed to contact the services they are assigned to?
Instructed, I didn't hear the rest of it.
Are they taught to contact, who to contact at the services that they're assigned to? Would they know? The chief resident is this person?
It's a hierarchy. There's a junior resident, a chief resident, a physician, and the physician in chief of that service.
Okay, and when starting the rotation, a fourth year student would know who the chief resident they're responding to is. Based on your report, would you expect they would know who they're supposed to report to?
Yes, sure.
Is there any way, given your 40 years experience as a dean of education, that you would expect a fourth year student who is not going to show up for the first year of their clerkship, not to call the clerkship in addition to the medical school at the very least?
I would expect them to call the clerkship.
In your 40 years of experience as the dean of education, are you aware of any situation whatsoever where a fourth year medical student who was assigned to a specific clerkship and didn't show up didn't call the service to let them know?
I'm not aware of it. No.
My last question. In your 40 years as the dean of education at the Albert Einstein Medical School, other than this case involving Kathleen Durst, have you personally ever been contacted by a student to say that they were going to be sick and not show up for a clerkship or rotation?
No.
Okay, I'm
Cross-examination.
Yes, sir.
Dr. DeGuerin, you may proceed with your cross-examination.
Thank you, Dr. Kuperman. I'm Dick DeGuerin, and I represent Bob Durst. You were actually expecting a call from Kathy Durst that day, weren't you?
Yes.
Sir?
Yes.
Yes, isn't it? And the reason you were expecting a call is because of your knowledge that you got from Dr. Cook and your reviews of records and so forth, that Dr. Cook was very concerned about Kathy missing classes,
Yes.
and that he told you to be on the lookout for a call from her.
Yes.
And the way the call came in, as best you can figure out, is that it may have come to Dr. Cook's office. He was gone, wasn't he?
Right.
And then Dr. Cook's secretary switched it to your secretary who gave the call to you.
Right.
And so when Kathy Durst said, "I'm Kathy Durst, and I can't make it today because I'm sick," whatever the exact words were, that wasn't out of the ordinary for you at all, was it? You managed to.
In that particular case, I was not surprised.
And throughout the years, since 1982, 35 years, as of a week ago, you've always believed that it was Kathy, haven't you?
Yes.
But it's only recently, when the prosecutors came to meet you, that you felt like they were trying to get you to say it wasn't Kathy, or you had no basis for saying it was Kathy. Is that correct, or do you need the question?
Could you repeat
Sure.
your exact words?
I don't know if I can say
That was something.
the exact words that I just said. But it's only been recently that you felt like either the prosecutors or the police have tried to get you to say, well, maybe it wasn't Kathy.
Well, I wouldn't say they tried to get me, but there arose in me the possibility that it may not have been Kathy Durst. I had no reason to think it was Kathy Durst, except that she said so.
That's what you say now, but before, you've always said it was Kathy Durst.
It didn't occur to me that it could have been someone else.
In fact, you've even said that you recognized the voice. It sounded like
No,
her.
I never.
You said it sounded like her, didn't you?
I don't believe I ever said it sounded like her. I don't know how she sounded on the phone.
Let me see
Until
how
I got the phone call.
Okay. Let me see our exhibit BB, page 7. Can you see that screen, please, sir?
What are we referring to?
This is a transcript of an interview. I will tell you witness.
You can display exhibits to counsel before you,
Yeah.
here there's no harm in the jury, but display to counsel before you.
This is very difficult to read.
Okay, we'll ignore it. Any else? Let me explain to you what this is, Dr. Cooper. You recall being interviewed by the producers of the movie Jinx.
No, it wasn't that. There was another. Oh, maybe it was. I don't know what the movie
Andrew
is.
Jarecki and Mark Smerling and
Yeah.
several others,
Yeah.
some sound people and so
Yeah.
forth. What I'm going to display to you, to see if it refreshes your recollection or you agree with it, is a transcript of that interview that we've been provided by the prosecution.
For the record, we're talking about an interview on February 17, 2012.
I believe that's today. It's it's in discovery, and it's your case number 147907.
That's the date. I'm just making it clear for the record.
Do you want a stipulation, counsel, that that's the date?
That's fine.
We'll stipulate on it that that's the date. We'll accept it.
make it easy.
Substitute ways?
That's fine.
Or substitute ways?
So let me finish explaining to you what it is. The producers tape recorded you. Maybe it wasn't tape, maybe it was electrical, but they recorded you. And asked you a lot of questions. But I want to refer you specifically to see if this will refresh your recollection to page 7 of what is our exhibit BB, which is a transcript of that interview with you. It should be on your screen. Toward the middle of the page, it begins with the question. You were familiar enough with her voice that you thought you didn't even hesitate. Read your answer.
What was your exact question again?
Well, I want you to read your answer. Have you read your answer? Particularly to the next question.
It was a woman's that one.
Well, and the next question too. Have you had enough contact with her prior to that to recognize her voice?
Well, I don't know if phones are different, but it sounded like her.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Now,
don't know. I mean,
yes, but the question that I'm asking you is, just a moment ago, I asked you if it sounded like her, and you said, no. But you told these people that it did sound like her.
I can't be sure it was her. I just say no.
Doctor, let me refine my question. A moment ago, I asked you if it sounded like her, and you said no. But you told these producers that it did sound like her, didn't you?
I can't recall that. I can only read who's here.
Well, let's assume for a moment, but assuming that what the prosecution has supplied us is an accurate transcription of that interview when the producers of the Jinx came to see you. You told them, didn't you, that it sounded like her?
If that's what it says, I don't recall that.
Well, let's just go back one page, to page 6. You start to talk about it, this must be maybe 10 years ago. That's when the detectives came around for the second round of interviews. And then on page 7, you say, it sounded like her. That's what you said, right?
Okay, if that's what it says, I can't deny it.
And you also got the idea that the police were kind of trying to pressure you into saying that it wasn't her, right?
I don't recall the pressure, but I think there was something about the conversation that indicated to me that that's what they were aiming at.
That the police were trying to get you to change.
If you call that pressure, yeah.
Right. Well, let's look at what you said on that same page, page 7. The question is asked you, police made a big deal. Yeah, right there. Sorry. You were asked, because did you feel like you were being pressured? And your answer was yes. I'm going to ask the question. Also, the police made a big deal because did you feel like you were being pressured into? You say, yeah. Question coming off. Answer, after a while, I had enough already. Have I read that correctly?
I can't recall my exact words. If this is what was transcribed, I assume it's true. I must have said that.
But you can assume that, I don't
But I
think,
don't recall that pressure now from the detective that interviewed me. That's a long time ago.
certainly was, 35 years ago.
Right.
What was the events happened? I'm not arguing that. Here's my question, really. Doctor, you were trying to be truthful with the interviewers for that movie, right?
Right.
And they asked you if you felt like you'd been pressured in the past, and you said yes, right?
I suppose I did.
Okay. And by the way, you mentioned that you had not seen the movie The Jinx or the other movie, but you were certainly aware that they were making a movie, weren't you?
That was their intention, yes.
And that it was coming up?
Yes.
Okay. In fact, later on, when Mr. Lewin came and Mr. Balian came and Detective Chamberlain, is that correct pronunciation? Chamberlain?
Very good.
Okay, thanks. Came to talk to you. You actually asked him, is this new stuff because of that movie?
I might have said that. I knew about the movie, but I hadn't seen it.
Can we go to our CC, page 6? Let's hide at the top of 5. K is you and D is
You want to let us go further, this transcript, CC.
yes, this is a transcript. Put the first page up. This will explain it.
January 28, 2015.
January 28, 2015. This is a transcript of the interview that's been provided us by the district attorney's office. Okay, Doctor. Shortly after the interview began, by the way, did you know that they were recording you? I see.
Yes.
Okay. And you asked the question, did all this start because of the HBO documentary that's going to be broadcast starting in February? That was your question.
Right.
They didn't really answer it. Did they? The D is, for your information, the D stands for Mr. Lewin, and the K is, of course, for you, Kuperman.
What's your question?
Yeah. They didn't really answer it, did they? Didn't answer your question. Whether this all started because of the HBO documentary.
Well, I get the impression it wasn't that.
That's not the question. Your question was, did this all start because of the HBO documentary? And they didn't really answer that, did they?
I guess not.
I started off my cross-examination, Doctor, by asking you if you always believed that it was Kathy Durst that called you, and you said yes.
Yes.
So, when Kathy Durst called you, or you believed it was Kathy Durst called you on February the 1st, sometime between 9 and 11 in the morning, and said she was sick, you were interviewed about that multiple times, weren't you?
Yes.
You were interviewed that week, the week of February the 1st, 1982, by a Detective Struck.
Right.
And you've been shown what Detective Struck wrote about that interview, haven't you? Do you recall being shown a report of Detective Struck about his interview with you? Yes, sir. This is a report written by Detective Struck on February the 12th, 1982, reporting on a telephone conversation with Dr. Kuperman on February the 8th in paragraph 1, and a re-interview of Dr. Kuperman at it says Cook, but it's actually Cook's office.
All right. I'd like a more succinct title, but we'll work on that. So you'll cover it, cover the handwritten portion before you display to the witness, because it's the type portion that is pertinent to your question.
Maybe you just didn't copy the camera.
It's fine.
Okay, we removed the handwriting, and we'll blow it up so perhaps you can read it. You were asked about this, by the way, on direct examination. The part about the telephone call that I believe you disagree with is that Mrs. Durst was disturbed about having to make up the time that others did not have to make up.
I don't know how I possibly could have said that because I don't recall that at all.
Wasn't that information that you got from Dr. Cook?
That could be, but I don't remember.
Okay, and then the part that says Mrs. Durst has a history of mental distress.
I don't know where that comes from. Certainly nothing I said.
Did you have a conversation with Detective Struck about the length of time?
About what?
About the length of time that Kathy Durst was on the telephone with you?
I don't recall.
Does this refresh your recollection? If you look at the second paragraph in which you said that the length of or Detective Struck quotes you as saying that the length of the telephone conversation you had with Mrs. Durst on February the 1st was long enough to have caused an interruption by a calling booth operator, wherein this did not occur. Did you
This is
tell
like
that?
complete news to me. I do not recall
You don't
that.
recall that at all?
I don't recall.
And Dr. Kuperman stated he heard noise in the background, possibly a radio. Do you remember that?
I have no recollection of that whatsoever.
But what you do recollect is that you've always thought it was Kathy Durst that called.
I had no reason not to believe it. She said she was Kathy Durst. Dr. Cook alerted me to the fact that she might be calling. And would I please take the call that she did? So everything pointed to that. That's the evidence I have.
And it sounded like her.
It was a high-pitched woman's voice. It sounded like her.
Okay, high-pitched woman's voice, but it sounded like her. You said that twice, didn't you?
I don't recall saying it, but the record says I said it, so.
Okay. In truth, your review of the record showed that Kathy Durst was in some difficulty with her classes.
She had had some difficulty in the past, but actually, for a substantial period of time prior to her disappearance, she was doing pretty well.
She had she had to take her radiology clerkship over again because of her difficulty. Right?
I don't recall it being radiology that she had to take over again.
Let me
I thought it
see.
was neurology, actually.
May we see Exhibit D, please, and this is part of the prosecution's Exhibit 1, Your Honor.
Exhibit B is part of one, and that is, so this is a student evaluation of Kathleen Durst. A single page from the larger packet that is people.
Can we identify a page so we know exactly what's correct, clear as what page? 131-435.
Actually, mind if you write that? We've written, Your Honor, with the court. Oh, I'm sorry.
This is a student evaluation by Dr. Dish. I can't pronounce that. Can you? No.
Yeah, I don't, this is a legitimate evaluation. I have no question about it. I just don't remember it specifically.
Okay, well, let's look at it. What it says is, Mrs. Durst was unable to attend a large part of the clerkship, mostly due to ill health.
This is back in November.
Right.
What year are we talking?
1980. Right? 1980. There's also a comment by this doctor about her lack of responsibility in returning books. You see that?
Yes.
Now, do you, let me see now. All right, exhibit I, please. This is from something that's already in evidence. We just isolated this page, Doctor. It is a page of the exhibit that has the register of records.
Page number.
13142.
Thank you.
It's an actual memo to Kathleen Durst, isn't it?
Okay.
Is it?
Yeah. This is just on the I'm not, at the time this was going on, I was not made aware of all this detail.
I understand that.
I'm reading this for the first time, actually.
I see that, but this is part of the evidence that the prosecution had introduced, her records, Kathleen Durst's records. And really what I'm getting to is your statement that she was doing fine.
Which statement?
Your statement that she was doing fine and was expected to graduate. Doctor, this is a record of Einstein University.
This is a 1-month clerkship. It is not unusual for students to have some problem during a 4-week clerkship. But subsequently, she seemed to be doing okay.
Is it unusual for someone to take books and not return them?
I've done it myself.
In spite of repeated demos and telephone calls?
I don't know what that was all about.
I'm asking you whether you know about it, but you said you've taken them before. Did they call you and tell you to return?
They don't call. The librarian spoke to me a few times about that.
Okay, and you remember?
I didn't do it frequently.
Of course. And you returned them when
That actually doesn't seem like a terrible situation to me. I think this particular instructor is making more of it than it needed to be,
Okay, let's not
in
try
my
to
opinion.
talk at the same time.
Okay,
The court reporter is doing a tough
Okay.
enough job, all right.
okay,
But you see what this said, don't you?
right.
Let's go to Exhibit J.
Again, this is a document from People's A, one page from, say, apparently, People's One, pardon me.
Your Honor, it's from Prosecution Exhibit 1.
131429 base. Thank you.
This is an evaluation in November of '81. Her attendance in rounds and conferences should have been better. Do you see where that's written?
Well, I guess you could say that about many students, that it could have been better, it could always be better. She got a pass, she didn't get honors. If she was better, she might have gotten honors. This is a very intense experience. This is what we call a sub-internship, where the medical student behaves like an intern in the hospital. And it's very demanding. There's night call duty, 36-hour on call, and so forth. And despite the intensity of that experience, she seems to be doing pretty well here.
Well, let's go to the next one. Exhibit K. 131-428.
Again, this is out of People's One.
Yes, Your Honor. Well, this is yet another professor that's says she missed several sessions, right?
Well, it's a 4-week clerkship, and she might have missed 2 or 3.
I'm not asking you to speculate on how many.
I'll ask the witness to allow me to answer the question I was posed.
Did you complete your answer?
Could you say that again?
Yes.
Not asking you how many or to speculate on how many she missed. Plain words are she missed several sessions.
Right. If that's what it says, that's true.
And Dr. Cook warned you before he took off the week of February the 1st to be on the lookout for Kathy Durst calling in ill. Didn't he?
He did alert me to that fact, yes.
And he didn't alert you to any other student, did he?
No. The actual, again, this is a long time ago. It's very hard to recollect specific words. In my conversation with Dr. Cook, it seemed to me he was indicating she might call in as being absent.
So it was concerning enough to Dr. Cook to warn you about being on the lookout for a call from Kathy Durst.
Right.
When you received the call that for 35 years you believed was from Kathy Durst, she told you that she was ill,
Right.
and she described her symptoms.
Right.
And she described her symptoms in a way that you believed at the time a medical student wouldn't describe her symptoms.
Right.
Were those symptoms consistent with use of drugs or alcohol?
No.
She described gastrointestinal distress.
Right.
She described a headache. Right?
Right.
She described diarrhea.
Right.
You know what mannitol is, by the way?
Excuse me?
Do you know what mannitol is?
Yes.
The symptoms she described, though, satisfied you that she was describing real symptoms. She didn't question it.
I didn't question.
And you didn't say, well, you should call the doctor you're supposed to have clerkship with, did you?
I might have, but I don't recall that.
And you didn't say anything other than you were supportive of her
Right.
and get well soon?
Sure.
And you reported a call to Dr. Cook, didn't you?
We wrote some notes which Dr. Cook's secretary took, I believe, when he returned.
Well, what started it was Dr. Cook wrote you a note. Please come and see him.
Could you
Is it true?
repeat the question?
I'll restate it. It's true, isn't it, that Dr. Cook wrote you a note to see him when you return? Ray, Mrs. Durst. Okay. Now, let me lay a predicate. Dr. Cook, as you did and as many people did, kept all of your records there at Einstein. I want to show you something that's a record from Einstein, marked 5K. Let me lay a little further to it. It was the practice at that time, maybe still is, but it was the practice at that time that notes and memoranda written by you or others at Einstein would be kept in your files.
Yes.
And those notes would be notes that were kept by you or others with personal knowledge of the content of the notes.
Sure.
And they were accurate as well as you could make them so.
Right.
Okay. It was a practice of those at Einstein to keep records of everything you did. Right? You have to answer verbally.
In general, we keep records of all comments pertaining to students that are official. Just as written by a dean, we take that seriously.
Okay, well then let's look at exhibit number KKKKK, 5 Ks. Let's look at the exhibit, please. Okay, this is the first page. There's a little bit better. Dr. Kuperman is from Dr. Cook to Investigator John O'Donnell, and it says it includes parts of Kathy's file. So the next pages are parts of Kathy's file.
It looks like they're from her John Cook's personal file in his office. I don't know what that means, personal file. Personal business record.
Counsel, can we stipulate, just so it's clear, that we don't have a date on this document? Can we,
Actually, we do.
can we then get the date on this document?
Sort of the top, sort of show the facts.
It was faxed on March 7th, 2003. From somebody to somebody.
Okay. What I want to go to is the next pages in the document. Page 3 is a note from to you dated February the 8th of 82. Now, please see me when you return, pray, Mrs. Durst. Signed with a J. You recall getting that, don't you?
I can't specifically recall, but it sounds very logical that I would get such a note. Knowing Dr. Cook, he would want to know what I found out.
And even today, 35 years after the fact, you recall that you did talk to Dr. Cook when he returned.
Oh, sure.
And it was about Kathy.
Yes.
And about the call that you got from Kathy, the one that you believe was Kathy for 35 years.
Right.
And now go to page 2.
And hold on. For the record, I'm trying not to interrupt the flow. The page you was just referring to is 072673. Otherwise, we'll have no way of knowing what he's looking at.
That's the base number. The previous page in this package
This is different from People's One, isn't it? Is this
it's not in People's One.
This is not in People's One.
No, this is a different file of the university. As I established,
Right. So, KKK, but is 6 pages, the others are a single page, but we need to identify not only the nature of the document, but its
I'll do that for the record, Your Honor. The exhibit that's marked 5Ks has 6 pages. There's a fax logo at the top that dates it as March 7th, 2003. There are notes from Dr. Cook. There's 2 further notes from Dr. Cook. Another note from Ms. Tarife to Dr. Cook.
so notes to and from Dr. Cook.
Yes. So the parts of the business records of Einstein University. So now let's get to, first, I had you identify the note that you got from Dr. Cook. That's the 8th February, 82. That's the following Monday after the call from the person that you believe was Cassie, for 35 years believed was Kathy Durst.
Right.
The next one I want you to look at is what appears to be the same handwriting, page 2 of that package. And here's what it says. 1 February, a.m., diarrhea, pain, headaches, couldn't function. Or, can you read that?
I can read it, yes.
Okay. That's how you describe to Dr. Cook the call that you got from Kathy Durst, at least the person you, for 35 years, believed was Kathy Durst. Right?
Correct.
Okay, and now,
Not to be exact, but I must state this for the record. From 1982 to 2015, when we interviewed him, it was 33 years. We're saying 35 years. It's not a big deal. I just want to point out for the record. It's taken through 33 years.
well, okay, let me go there. Did they change your mind when they interviewed you in 2015?
Changed my mind about what?
About whether the call was from Kathy Durst?
Based on the conversation I had with them, it raised the possibility in me that it may not have been.
So after,
I mean, I have no, other than the fact she said she's Kathleen Durst.
and sounded like Kathleen Durst. Right? Right?
Your Honor, this has been...
I cannot say that. I can't.
I'm sorry, but I have to put it again. You said that at least twice to the producers. Sounded like her, right?
What I probably meant, this was a woman's voice. High-pitched. I may have said that based on that weak evidence.
Well, Dr.
Because I never spoke to her by phone.
What was it that they said to you, being the prosecution, 2 years ago, that changed your mind after 33 years that this was Kathy Durst?
I can't recall the exact words. I think it was simply, are you absolutely positive that it was Kathleen Durst? It was a question, something like that. And that for the first time raised in me the possibility that it may not have been, or that at least I can't say with great certainty it was. And that's as best as I can describe it.
When the movie producers came to, did you tell them, the movie producers, that having the police come to you several times in the past 30 years, asking the same questions, made you feel that they were trying to, that they wanted you to say something different from what you said?
Well, I don't recall how many times that I was, that they wanted me to be sure, put it this way.
Let me interrupt you a second.
Answer. Give the answer. You don't have to give it. Do you want to answer? You make it.
Let's try to establish how many times you need to talk. There were several times in the weeks following February the 1st, 1982, when you got the call from the woman that you believed for all those many years was Kathy Durst, that police interviewed you. Right?
Right.
And then there was a period of time when everything quieted down.
Right.
And then in perhaps the year 2000, they came to talk to you again.
Could have been around that time.
And asked you the same questions.
Pretty much.
And then again, they came to you in the interim after, say, 2003 or 4, and talked to you again.
I believe so, yes.
Asked you the same question.
I don't know if it was exactly the same, but it sounded pretty much like it was.
And so by 2013, when you interviewed with the movie producers, you told them that you were getting the feeling that the police were trying to get you to change your story, didn't you?
I don't know if they were trying to to get me to change the story, but it wanted me to be sure that indeed it was Kathleen Durst who called me.
So, but you stuck to the story, didn't you?
I guess I did.
In fact, you described it as it wasn't a story. It wasn't a story to me. It was as best I could remember.
Best I can remember.
Okay. Let me show you a quote from the interview with the movie producers. It's our exhibit BD, page 23, at the bottom of the page. Starts out with a question. Can you read that? Question, and do you remember the kind of interaction you had with the police? Were they, did you feel like they were buttoned up? Did you have any impressions? And then your answer. I want to concentrate on part of your answer. I did feel they were asking the same questions over and over again, and that they wanted you to say something different. Those are your words, aren't they?
Sounds like it.
And then you said, but I stuck to the same story, which wasn't a story to me. It was as best I remember.
It was as best as I could remember, yes.
Okay. And even when prosecution would appear.
Excuse me. When you say story, what the story that a woman who called herself Kathleen Durst called me, right?
No, I mean the story, or what you said was the truth, about the call you got from the woman you believe was Kathy Durst.
Right. Okay.
That's what we're talking about.
Right. Got it.
Because really that's your connection here, isn't it?
Right.
You got the call.
Right.
And the call you expected. Right?
A call that Dr. Cook warned me that I might get, yes.
And a call that you did not think was unusual.
In this particular case.
Right?
Right.
Okay. And so what you told movie producers was that I felt like the police were trying to get me to change my story, but I stuck to it. Right?
Could you please repeat that?
Yes, sir. What you told the movie producers was that you felt like the police, and coming back to you multiple times, were trying to get you to change your story. They wanted me to say something different from what I said. Your words. Right? But
That's a yes.
Yes.
okay. But as you told the first detective to ever question you, you got a call from who you believe was Kathy Durst.
Right.
It sounded like her.
Right.
You were expecting the call.
Right.
But she said she was sick and not coming in.
Right.
And described her symptoms.
Right.
And you told that same fact, set of facts, to everybody that asked you about that for 35 years, didn't you?
Right.
33. Okay.
Right.
Until the LADA team came and caused you to have some doubt. After all these years, is that right?
Well, if the question was put to me, and I think it was, can I be absolutely certain, like 100% certain, that it was Kathy Durst, I could not say that. And I really didn't think about that previously.
Busy moment. Dr. Kuperman, you remain in your room.
Yes.
You may resume your cross-examination, Mr. Durst.
Dr. We looked at a set of documents from Kathy's file that we marked as KKKKK for the record. A set of records that were sent by Dr. Cook to Investigator McDonald in 2003. It included on page 4, this is 07267. The note dated February 4th, that would have been Thursday of the week of February the 1st, to Dr. Cook from Sarife. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Sarifa, yes, she was the secretary in the registrar's office.
Okay. And it contains a memo as part of the records of Einstein as this package of exhibits, 5 pages. If that's a little hard to read, someone has written below that a little bit clearer what the note says. So here's, I'll read it to you. I received a call from Kathleen Durst's husband, Robert Durst, very concerned at Kathleen's whereabouts. Said he spoke to Dr. S. Block. Who's Dr. Block?
He was the head of the ambulatory pediatrics rotation at the Bronx Municipal Hospital Center.
And that's what she was supposed to start that Monday, right?
Right.
Okay, so Mr. Durst talked with Dr. Block and hid. I'll move on.
Right, I mean, that document, this is what the document indicates.
And it goes on to say, and Dr. Block. Is that the same as Dr. Block?
No.
Well, is Dr. Block the doctor who was the head of the ambulatory pediatrics section?
And that, Dr. Volk was the head of the pediatric teaching at Bronx Municipal Hospital Center.
Okay.
Under her is the doctor, the other doctor, who was specifically in charge of the rotation that Kathleen was on.
Councilman Block and Volk are two different people.
They're two different people.
Would you continue it if you like? I was trying to establish from the witness, Your Honor, that Block and Volk are two different people.
At first, one would suspect a
Misspelling.
so I think it's good that you cleared that up.
Okay. And the note goes on to say, and Dr. Volk told him she has not shown up for the rotation. He would like for you to contact him at work. And there's a telephone number and it says, oh, the next page is the other side. And it says he will be there until 5:30, after 5:30 at home. This was shown to you when you were interviewed by Mr. Lewin and his crew, wasn't it?
I don't recall.
have our exhibit. CC, and I'll identify it for the record. CC is a transcript provided to us by the prosecution of Dr. Kuperman's interview on January 28, 2015. And I want to go directly to page 44. Excuse me, 43. About line 6 through 10. I'll read it to you, the doctor, for the record. This is Mr. Lewin asking the question. Okay, and then we have the other thing is we have, this is dated February 8, 82. It says, Al, please see me when you return regarding Mrs. Durst. It has a J. See that?
Right.
Okay, now, what they were showing you there was that same set of documents that Jean Cook John Cook, that contained the letter or the note where you see Dr. Cook and the description of her symptoms that you gave Dr. Cook, correct?
Right.
All right. And when they interviewed you, even though you were at home, weren't you?
Right.
You didn't have at home accessibility to the records at Einstein, did you?
No.
Although if you'd been interviewed at your office at Einstein, you would have had accessibility.
I could have had accessibility, yes.
So what you were showed was only what the prosecutor showed you.
Right.
And it was very limited.
Right.
Now, you told them, didn't you, about how John Cook had told you that she was absent a lot and to expect her call.
Right.
And you told them she was starting a clerkship. Right.
Right.
Let's go to page 15 of that same transcript. At the bottom, Mr. Lewin asked you about a prior statement you've given, that she began missing classes in the second half of her third year. As you sit here, is that something you remember? Your answer was, yes, I would say that's probably when, it does seem to me, I do recall, that's a long time ago, but that's when John Cook, started alerting me. So there was concern, wasn't there?
Yes.
And you were asked if you had gotten other information from Dr. Cook a little bit later. Let's go to page 19. You're asked, tell us, page 17, line 17. And so, if you can, this is a question by Mr. Lewin. Tell us about what you knew about Dr. Cook's relationship with Kathy. Your answer, he was concerned about her and the missing of classes. He may have known more about the situation than I did. All I know is she was absent, and I was told to be aware of that. There it is. In case she calls. That's what you told me, right?
Okay. Sounds right.
In your direct examination, Dr. Kuperman, I took it that the prosecution was trying to establish that it was highly unusual for Kathy to call Dr. Cook or to call you. And so I want to ask you about that. Actually, you told them, that is, prosecution team, that, page 35, that Kathy was told to call Dr. Cook. Didn't you?
Yes.
I believe we've already established that the call would have come to you through Cook's office.
Yes.
And so it was something that you believed was protocol for her to call Cook's office if she was to be absent. And in this case, it would be routed to you.
Yes.
Okay. Now, point you to a specific conversation, question and answer between you and Mr. Lewin, beginning on page 28 of that same transcript. Here's where I'm going with this. Mr. Lewin asked you,
Mr. Garrett, I don't believe that's the interview involving. I believe that's Mr. Giorgetti's interview.
It is correct.
well, you had that long, I didn't see what was on the page 28. The question asked you by Mr. Lewin is at the top of the page, headline 3. What leads you to believe the person called and identified themselves as Kathy Durst? Is that right? And your answer was, I had no reason to believe otherwise. Right? That's your answer.
was the question?
Yeah, I've read lines 3, 4, and 5 of Mr. Wood's question, and then
Right.
your answer, I had no reason to believe otherwise.
Right.
That was your answer.
Sounds right.
Is that where the seed of doubt was put in your mind about whether it was actually Kathy Durst?
I think it began to gel there, yeah.
So, after 33 years of believing it was Kathy Durst, a question by the prosecutor starts you wondering. Right? Am I right about that?
I think that's right.
There's a couple of other questions. You were asked on direct examination about if Dr. Cook had said that Kathy Durst's principal contact in the administration was not Dr. Cook, but Dr. Kuperman. She always had interacted with Dr. Cook through him as an intermediary. You were asked a question about that. You remember that on direct examination this morning? That was a long time ago.
I think I lost you with the last minute here.
All right. What I want to do is put on the screen our exhibit E. It's a series of questions that Dr. Cook answered in writing for investigator O'Donnell in 2003.
In 5-page facts from Dr. Cook to investigator O'Donnell.
And just for the record, Your Honor, these 5 pages, the first page purports to be a cover sheet, which purports to attach the following 4 pages. I'm just pointing out for the record that the first page of the cover sheet is based on 096239.
That's right.
And what is attached to is 074618.
And I also see that somehow page, we have a page 2 and 3 that are in the position of 4 and 5.
I believe I can explain that, Your Honor. I think this was a fault of the fax machine. It's actually 3 pages, and the second page of the exhibit is the first page of the questions and answers.
All right.
If you then go to the next page, what's at the top of that page is the bottom of that first page. Then you go to what is our third page, and that's the continuation of the answer that Dr. Cook gave at the bottom of page 1. By content, he's asked, did you in the week or 2, let me see,
Maybe see.
and I know better to argue when you've given me permission to go on, but there were specific questions asked of Dr. Cooper.
I hate to cut it off at such a dramatic moment. Now that we've figured out exactly what page the document is and whether the fax machine numbered it incorrectly, with that, I'm not going to leave you hanging until tomorrow. Was it the fax machine? Or human error? All right, ladies and gentlemen, so we'll return tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Do our very best to start at 9 o'clock. Remember, do not talk about the case or about any of the people or any subject involved in it with anyone, including the other jurors. Do not make up your mind about the verdict or any issue until after you've discussed the case with the other jurors during deliberations. For traveling jury, you could bring your suitcase if you want. I don't know if that makes sense for you. But we can keep it safe here if you want to go directly to the airport from here. No tweeting or Facebook or other social media. Have a relaxing evening without those things. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Thank you.